Good morning, everybody, and it's your host, Patricia. Welcome to today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I have a really interesting subject that I want to talk to you about. It has been on my heart for about a week now, and it took me a little while to actually decide that I was going to do this particular podcast because it requires a level of vulnerability that I feel like will be unnerving for some people. However, what is the purpose of being able to speak truth if you're not going to do it? So, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to share it with someone if you think it's going to help them or benefit them in their journey called life. Um, so let me just get straight into it. I don't want to take a lot of your time. So, recently, I actually got an opportunity to watch The Color Purple. And I don't know if a lot of you have actually watched this movie or not. To me, it is very interesting. I feel as though every generation we have those mile marker movies that wake us up, grab our attention, and help us to be able to see what life is like in the shoes of another human being. This was based off of a book. You know me, I'm a type of person, I love resources. So you can get the book by Alice Walker, or you can go to the library and pick it up for free along with the movie. And so I felt as though another movie would be What's Love Got to Do with It with Ike and Tina. That was another epic movie for that time and for that generation. Um, and there are many other books where women have just endured. And I don't want to keep this podcast simply centered on women because men have endured as well. As I was watching the movie, I just kind of wondered from the perspective of what his life was like in order for him to be able to do a person like that, treat a woman like that. But let me slow down and let me go backwards so that we can get the full content information. So, if you have watched this movie, you know that she was a young woman. She was repeatedly raped by her father, which ended up not being her father. She also had children by this man that were just forcefully taken from her and sent with another family. On top of that, her sister was also in the midst of getting abused once Celie left from her parents' home. Her mother had also passed. So she starts to live with this man. He is way older than her, but she's more or less just his maid, and he just uses her for sexual gratification. There is no connection of love, there's no emotional connection. She cannot talk to him. She actually calls him sir. And it was a part in the movie where he actually let the woman that was from his past come and live with him and nurture and care for her more than the very woman that was actually in his physical home with him. This whole movie intrigued me because I think when I was a kid, I didn't understand what was going on. I might have watched this movie when I was like 12 or 11. I mean, it's been out for a very long time, but I really didn't understand the content or the material of what it was really trying to explain. And so I got older. I watched this movie probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I still didn't grasp everything. And I feel as though I was able to understand more of the information as I placed the caption on, because there were parts in the movie that I was not able to hear simply because the volume may have been too low, or just the fact that some of the stuff that she said went over my head because I couldn't really hear her. So this time I really put the caption on and I focused on the movie. Now, most of you know me, I am a movie critic. I love movies, and I feel like movies, as well as books, have ways of conveying messages to us that we and otherwise would not hear or see, because sometimes life gets chaotic and you just need direction or information. And I really believe sometimes that you can get that from a movie. So, The Color Purple, when I finally sat down and I was able to see exactly what was going on, it was a part in the movie where her sister told her that she would write to her and nothing but death would be able to keep her from writing her sister. But it seemed as though she never wrote her, but that was not the true content of the story. She stood at the door in this particular scene and she cried, just she cried because her sister didn't write her. But as I continued to watch the movie, I finally understand that wasn't exactly all that she was crying about. So fast forward to the end, and as they're walking through the field, her and Shig Avery were talking about The Color Purple. and they made like a biblical reference or whatever, but I will have to do a little bit more research and digging on that reference. But basically, she said, love, love, that is all people want. That is what everybody's kicking and screaming and yelling about. People just making fuss because they want to be loved. And so that is the purpose of this podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about love. I wanted to name this material Love in Spite of. A couple weeks ago, I was here, at my home by myself, and I was thinking, I don't think it's so much that people are unlovable. I think it's the circumstances that make people the way that they are, or the circumstances that surround them that we don't have the patience or the tolerance to actually want to deal with. Recently, God had really been dealing with me about love being patient and love being kind. And there are several different type of explanations to love, and I'm actually looking them up right now because I know a long time ago one of the people that I was involved with asked me, well, what is love? And I was trying to explain it to them like, love is not this euphoric feeling that you feel like when you first get on a roller coaster and it's exciting. I mean, it can be like that, but I am firmly starting to believe that love is tested when you go through the valleys, when you go through poverty, when you go through a person making a mistake that, in other words, you felt like you might not ever be able to forgive them. Love goes through challenges, love goes through unexpected events. Love is so powerful. And that was my post this morning on Instagram. You can definitely link with me at underscore Patricia Tomlinson on Instagram. But when I thought about love, so many of us have never had an opportunity to understand or actually feel what love feels like. For instance, if a guy makes a mistake and he doesn't know how to come out, he doesn't know how to be honest about it. I was really just speaking with someone the other day. It was a gentleman, and he was explaining how he feels like he was not able to be honest about the mistake that he made. And I said, well, that's an issue because if you've been with this person for so long, if they can't forgive you, then you don't feel like this person will forgive you, which is the issue of love, because it says love covers a multitude of sin or shortcomings or where we fail. So I'm going to read this scripture to you really quickly because it's talking about love in First Corinthians 13. And when I was younger, you don't understand a lot, but I'm going to read it to you in a different version besides the King James because the whole point of me doing this is so that you get the understanding. So in this version, which is the English Standard Version, it says the way of love. And then it goes down, and I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, love is patient and kind. And that is the two things that God has been really dealing with me about. For one, because I know that my patience with certain things and circumstances that people wears really thin. And what I do when that happens is like, I don't have to be around or deal with you because your circumstances or your situation is too difficult for me. Love is patient, which means that sometimes love takes time. Well, actually, it does. In order for you to be able to see if a person really loves you, it takes time. And it's the weirdest thing. I'm really starting to understand that through love. I didn't understand this before, but sometimes people will allow people in your life to make a mistake or mess up or do something, not that he causes it, but do something that will trigger you to see if your love is genuine or not. And then it says, love is kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not exist on its own way, which I feel like is a component of control. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Rejoices with truth. Love bears all things. Love believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And so when I thought about this, in my mind, I started to conceptualize so many people. I put a couple posts up a couple weeks ago just about women in the sense of I felt that so many women are so angry because they have not been loved. And when they finally figure out the way that I was done, the way that I was treated or talked to was not a component of love, it does have the capacity to really make a woman upset or any person. It is very hurtful. And I just wondered, sometimes people come into our life and they need so much love. And then I questioned it because sometimes people don't have the capacity to love you back. And that baffled me because I know so many people that have been in relationships or friendships that took so much from them, required so much from them. And then when they got out of the situation, it was like, I made a mistake. I I don't know why I did that, why I allowed myself to be in a situation that requires so much from me. And I had to question and ask, is that really wrong? Because it says love bears all things, endures all things, hopes all things, love never fails. So when a person gets into a situation with someone and they're treating them bad and doing them wrong, is that person wrong for showing that person love? Because love could be the answer of what that person really needs in order to be able to see light. I talk to different people on different days and different for different reasons, and but there's always a lesson in the conversation. And an individual that I have been talking to have been going through some different type of abuse from different people. And the problem is that we don't have anything to compare it to. If you're the type of person that has been in a relationship or a situation for 4 or 5 years, and it seems as though what this person is giving you is love, it seems as though what they're giving you is genuine, but it's really abuse because that's what your mind has registered as love is, you need something to compare it to. And I have found myself in several situations with friends and people where I was the benchmarker to show them love and support and kindness and gentleness, to show them that the other person did not love them, did not care, did not have their best interests at heart. And with that being said, I just don't understand now, being older and more mature, which I didn't understand when I was younger, about love. Because so many of us have been neglected from love. So many of us haven't had a person be patient with us, long suffering, kind, and gentle. But somehow or another, we're able to do it, display it for another person. And I had to question and ask myself, is that because we know how it feels to not be loved? Is that because we do it because we understand that we would want someone to treat us like that or love us like that? Is it that the love, affection, and attention that we're giving away is because we really want it for ourselves? And so this was a very vulnerable topic for me because we're living in a time right now where, people are not as loving as they used to be. People don't really care about what you're going through, your situation, your circumstances. People will leave you stranded or abandon you. But I still feel like the biggest notion that God is manifesting in people's life is love. I feel as though as a woman, a lot of times, you will hear women say, I just want to be loved. I just want to be loved. Recently, it took maturity to help me understand the love that you give yourself will eventually find you. And I wonder how a lot of times that it is that women, as well as myself, can get into situations that are empty. And is it because there is an emptiness inside that attracts emptiness? I know that sounds weird, but it is definitely possible. And sometimes I'm just going to be honest with you. You might be a strong individual that has a lot of love, and God will use that love that you have and give it to somebody else. Not that they're going to respond the way that you think that they should, not that they are going to love you back. And the funny part about it is that not only does God know that, He gives you the grace to go through the situation when eventually it may break your heart or disappoint you because it doesn't end up being what it's supposed to be. I couldn't understand why a lot of situations in my life resulted in me loving or being there or supporting, but it was not reciprocated at that time. I remember a couple years ago, this lady that was like a really, really good spiritual mentor to me explained to me, She said, Patricia, God put you in those people's lives because he knows that they needed love. And when she said that, I was perplexed. Like, how selfish is God to think more of them that they needed love than me? And he knows that I don't feel like I've ever experienced it. But now, on the other end of this thought that she gave me, because I didn't receive it at the time, I'm like, God wouldn't do that. He wouldn't put me around hundreds of people to love them and myself not feel love. But that is not true. It depends on the capacity of what God knows as well as comprehends you can handle. And a lot of times he does do that. God knows everybody's love language. He knows what it is that makes them feel loved. He knows what it is that makes them feel neglected, unwanted, unnurtured. And sometimes you might be that person that has the love that another person needs to bring them out of bad relationships, to bring them out of abusive circumstances. And I'm not just talking about relationships, because abusive circumstances can be a job, it can be a friendship, it can even be a mindset. Whereas you love a person so much, they're able to see how special they are, and it helps them to feel that uniqueness, and they walk away from things that don't help them feel unique or significant. So today, I didn't want to make this podcast really, really long. This was something that just was on my heart for over a week. And I had to really sit on it and contemplate. Should we be loving people in spite of their circumstances, their situations? Absolutely. And I'm going to be honest, it takes a risk. It also sometimes feels like it's unrewarding. I mean, we all have those friends and people that it just seems like they just need and need and need, and they receive, but they never give back. But I'm a firm believer that in due time, all the love and everything that a person gives out in due time, they will receive that back. But the number one thing that you can't forget to do while you're doing this for other people is to love yourself, because you can't wait for another person to love you. There is no guarantee. You also have to remember that people have free will. So sometimes what you're expecting from a person are not able to give that back. But I am a firm believer that God will move people out of the way in order to give you what you need when he feels as though you need it. Sometimes it's not about when we want it, but the weird part is that everybody wants love, but everybody needs love as well. What if we took more care, self-care of ourselves and loved ourselves versus what for waiting for other people? That way, when people come around and they're empty, it won't cause us so much pain or heartache to love them, because we'll have a reservoir of love stored within ourselves because we've been loving on ourselves. The title of this specific podcast was Love in Spite of. I firmly do believe that God will put people in your life that need love, that have never experienced love, and you will be the one called as well as chosen to love them, to nurture them, to support them, to help them along their journey. And it could be for a season. Doesn't mean that you're stronger than that person, that you have more insight than that person. We don't know. I don't know why sometimes the plane is not leveled. I don't know sometimes why things just don't seem like they're balanced. But I do believe that God is a just God. I do believe that he equals things out in his timing. And I do believe that everything that he allows to happen in your life, he does work it for the good. He does work it for the good. And as a woman, we are already loving and nurturing anyway. So sometimes it seems as though we're giving out so much more. But I want us to really start thinking, because loving in spite of means loving in spite of this person doing you wrong, neglecting you. Do not get me wrong or misunderstand. There are seasons where some people will be in your life and seasons where that season concludes and they're no longer there, and that's okay as well. But for the ones that God has mandated you to love or called you to love, it is so refreshing when you're doing it. Even if you're not receiving it back, it's the weirdest feeling of peace, because you know you're accomplishing and giving this person something that someone else may not have been able to give them, and you've been chosen to do that. Just like the love that a mother has for a child, you're chosen to love that child. because you were chosen to be that child's parent. And that's sacrificial because kids don't always love you back. Even when they're adults, sometimes you don't get back what you have given out. And that love that we have for children, which is so beautiful, it's really supernatural because it takes a love to overlook the faults and errors and failures and wrongs of another person. And I would like for, or just suggest, that you find or look for someone that needs love today. So many people are going through things. So many people are on drugs and alcohol usage. So many people are going through poverty, losing things. So many people are just in disarray because of everything that has literally been going on, especially because of COVID. So many people are in need of love. And what if you are the one chosen to love them? You must be a strong individual. I did this podcast last week about Phyllis Hyman. And the subject this week, or just for the past couple of weeks, has literally been love and support. But she was a woman that was regal. She was beautiful, but she couldn't get a date. She couldn't get a man. And ultimately, what that boiled down to is that she wasn't loved, which caused her to commit suicide. And so many people are not bold enough to commit suicide. And I don't recommend it. If you're battling with that, I definitely recommend that you go see somebody and get help. However, she wanted to be loved, and nobody was able to do that for her. Even the people that were around her, she obviously felt something about the love that they had for her because it resulted in her ending her life. But I will say that when you don't have love, it can be very harsh and very hard. However, everybody wants it. However, everybody is not able to give it, and some people are not able to receive it. My prayer for you today is that if you are the type of person that has been loving other people, that it will turn around and work in your favor, that someone will find you and give you the love that you have been giving out to other people. If you are the type of person to have a hard time receiving it due to trust issues, lack of trust, my prayer for you today is that your heart will open up enough to be able to receive love and not be scared or sabotage it. So, with that being said, let us today find ways to love other people. Let us today mature and think about love, not so much in the context of what someone can do for me, but what you can do for another person. You never know that it might actually be the catalyst that may change their life. So, I thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. My name is Patricia. I definitely wanted to keep it brief today because I feel like I might actually elaborate on this subject a lot more later on. But I thank you so much. Don't forget to share this with someone that you think may need it. Tune in for more podcasts, and you guys have a wonderful day and a blessed week. Bye, everybody.